Mark Cuban has just called into our control room. Mark, are you there?
I'm sure I am. Hey, Scott.
It's good to talk to you, and we don't have much time. But what do you make of the whole thing with Uber, the way it's traded, and the IPO in general?
I mean, it's not a surprise. It's not a growth company. It's not, it's a brand. It's an 8-year-old company, 9-year-old company. They just waited too long, and there's nothing exciting about it. Maybe they'll introduce something new. Maybe Uber Eats will explode and the numbers will show something incredible. But I don't think you could have expected anything different.
Wow, you know that they would take issue with you saying they're not a growth company. I mean, they may have an issue with revenue growth slowing down and the fact that they lose a lot of money and there really is no idea when they're going to be profitable. But they are a growth company, though, no? You really think they're such a mature company that the story has changed completely because they waited so long to go public?
Look, I don't know what the new business lines are going to introduce, but the reality is you're 9 years in and you're still having to buy your revenue. That's not a good sign. You're 9 years in, and in this economy, the fact that the whole gig economy is challenged when the overall economy and unemployment rates are low, and the economy is growing because it's not a primary job for most people. It's the job of last resort for most people. So they're looking to get that increases the cost of finding new drivers. Again, I'm not saying that they can't accelerate, they can't fix it, but right now it's a challenge.
Have you bought or would you buy any of the most recent IPOs, whether it's Zoom or Pinterest or Lyft
I was an early investor in Lyft, and so I'm still up a little bit on my stock. It was $1 million position, so it was big but not huge for me. And no, I haven't bought any more. When I bought in Lyft, it was 4 years ago, and I've been pushing for them to go public from that moment on. Obviously, they waited and didn't listen. I just think we're seeing a reflection of the Silicon Valley ethos in the public market. The whole attitude was wait. You don't want to deal with an IPO. But at some point, all those VCs need a liquidity event. It also suggests that they're not very good at valuing companies, and it's not a very efficient market when it comes to late-stage companies and evaluating IPOs. Zoom is a nice alternative, but, Pinterest waited, Lyft, Uber, all of them. I think that's a real challenge.
Do you think by virtue of what we've seen with Uber and Lyft specifically that valuations in the Valley are now going to be completely reset for the companies that do attempt to go public?
Well, not necessarily for the companies that attempt. I think they'll attempt to go earlier, having learned from what they've seen with the current crop of IPOs. But it's just going to change a whole different mindset. I mean, a lot of VCs, they're not in the business of investing early anymore. They prefer to invest later and later and later with a higher success rate. And when you have a bunch of unicorns, even if they're, paper unicorns, it looks good in your portfolio. I think CEOs and employees are going to be smarter. I think the biggest impact is going to be on the choices employees make. And so you went from, hey, I'm early, I'm going to get a ton of stock, or maybe I've come in 4 or 5 years in, I'll have stock, it'll appreciate, I'll make a lot of money. I mean, how can you continue to do that as a potential employee for a lot of these Valley companies? You've got to ask yourself, will I make any money or much money at all? And so I think it'll impact their hiring abilities first for a lot of unicorns, and that will have the greatest impact, more so than how or when they go public.
So let me do this. We've bled into the next show, and they're kind enough to let us do that for a moment. So let me just ask you a couple more questions, and then I have to run.
Sure.
Give me your thoughts broadly on where the market is right now, what you think about the trade war, how it's escalated, and what you do as a well-known investor, Mark.
I mean, right now I do nothing. My two biggest positions are Netflix and Amazon, and it's been that way for years. I'm concerned about the trade war with China. It's hurt some of my Shark Tank companies that were manufacturing over there and dealt with the first tariff for their company and then saw it increasing even further. That's a real problem. It could put a couple of them out of business. Some are close. It's an issue. It's kind of a dichotomy from the administration in that on one side, they want to see the Fed reduce rates because they want to see the market go up. But on the other side, they've got to know that if they increase tariffs, the market's going to go down. And so it's hard to know what comes next. And so when I'm not sure what to do, I'll just stick to the sideline.
You know, lastly, I know you at one point you were toying with the idea of running for president, and I don't believe we've heard anything from you on that recently. And part of me was wondering whether you were waiting for some of the smoke to clear. Democratic field, which has now risen to 22, obviously vying to run against the president. Are you going to run for president?
You haven't heard anything from me for a reason, and we'll keep it that way.
So you're still considering it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Look, I've said it many times. It would take the perfect storm for me to do it. You know, the definition of bad parenting is running for president when you have 3 young kids, 9, 12, and 15. So there's some things that could open the door, but, you know, I'm not projecting or predicting it right now.
Who do you think on the Democratic side right now has the best chance against President Trump?
Nobody right now. I think what people are missing is, you know, if you look at why people voted for Donald Trump, in my opinion, it was because he was, first and foremost, it was because he wasn't a politician. And look, you know, if you look at the Democratic field, it's all politicians. And politicians are the least trusted of every profession. And so, you know, it's too early to tell. There's nobody that really stands out, even though Biden's leading the polls. I like, you know, Vice President Biden. I think he's smart. I think he could do a decent job, but I think it's still way too early to tell. And, you know, I think there's a lot of change yet to come. If
you ran, would you run as a Democrat?
No, absolutely not. I'd run it as an independent, most likely.
And you think
I still think there's a real opportunity for somebody who is, you know, in the middle, but has some charisma, has the ability to relate to both sides, but is not a politician. The reality is people don't trust politicians, period, end of story. You know, and we can talk about, you know, they just, I'm not going to change anybody's mind. I don't want to try to change anybody's mind right now. But the reality is people don't trust politicians. And if you look at the Democrats right now, it's hard to look at the proposals that they're making and think that they're any more than they're just as headline important to get attention. I don't think anybody looks at, you know, the proposals and says, look, yeah, we're going to introduce these taxes, and that trickle down. Look, I think trickle down economics is a failure. I think trickle down taxation is just as big a failure. I don't think either one works. And right now, what I'm hearing from the Democrats is all about trickle down taxation. I think that's a failing proposition, and I don't even think they believe that what they're proposing is passable.